Katie and Jules, a.k.a. the Ting Tings, have joined me at the Q table. It's so good to have you back at Q.
Thanks for having us.
It's been a while.
It has. You've just played Wrong Club. Is that a situation that you found yourselves in on occasion?
Completely, yeah. I think most people have found themselves in a dodgy nightclub at 4 a.m, beer spilled down them, tearful, going home, having a puke. Yeah, I think that's quite a normal situation.
I know I have. That's why I always roll with bail money. Katie, I've heard this is your favorite track on the album. Can you tell me why that is?
Exactly for that reason. It's sort of sad, happy song. I love songs that you hear in clubs that sound happy and then the lyrics are just moaning and depressing. And then I love bands like the Smiths, and they have those real moaning lyrics. You know, it sounds like the most beautiful song in the world, and then he's singing about being run over by a bus. So, yeah.
Too true. So what is it about that contrast that appeals to you so much, do you think?
I don't know. I think there's just something quite nice when you're dancing on a dance floor to something that's quite melancholy. I don't know why. It just adds to the effect. And what I like about it as well is that we slowed the BPM down. We've been in Ibiza, which was like, you know, clubbing capital of Europe, world famous for kind of EDM and, you know, full-on techno, and we'd go to the clubs, and we loved going to the clubs, but we'd come back and go, oh, can you imagine what it would be like in Studio 54 in CBGBs and those clubs that don't exist now, where the BPM was lower so people could actually dance. So right. The whole album we set out to kind of bring that BPM down and just make it a little bit more like funky and like a groove. So
a celebration of the sorrow.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. Jules, Wrong Club is from your new record, Super Critical, and you can really hear that disco, Nile's kind of Nile Rodgers flavor. Why'd you want to bring disco into the sound of this new record?
Every record we make is different. First record was very kind of punk, new wave. Second record, we kind of got a bit alternative, got really inspired by Beastie Boys, and spent a lot of time in the States. And the third record, we're starting to find our identity. We realised that I think throughout all our records that we're going to make, we want to make a different record each time. We want to be a band that our audience are, you know, are surprised each time we make a record. I think too many bands make, you know, sort of similar type of records all through their careers. There's nothing wrong with that. We love that, but that's just something about us that we are fascinated by different styles. So when we were starting this record, before we started writing, we needed a reason to write, and we were trying to think, why do we want to be in a band again? What's the next thing, you know? And Katie had a picture of Diana Ross sitting in Studio 54 in the booth singing. It looked effortless. It looked so cool. And obviously DJ culture, dance music has taken a massive leap in the last 5 years or more. And that's kind of what inspired it. We started thinking about, could we take the drum kit and the guitar and put it in a DJ booth, go into a club, bring the BPM down and challenge ourselves to write music and, you know, entertain in that way. And that's how we started thinking about funk and soul and disco. Started to listen to all these great records. They were predominantly US-based, you know, musicians that we were listening to, like you say, Nile Rodgers and funk and stuff like that. And then we went to Ibiza because we felt that was like Katie said, that was a centre for rhythm music in terms of dance music. And by complete fate, we met Andy Taylor from Duran Duran, who co-produced the record with us.
Andy Taylor, who I had Tiger Beat pictures of pasted all over my bedroom wall for years and years. Before we talk about him, just for the unskilled listener, BPM.
Beats per minute.
And when you bring that down, the effect is?
People dance.
Yeah, at the moment in Ibiza, everything's at kind of any 125 or 128, so it's like, and you kind of do a different type of dance. I guess you're kind of gurning, hands in the air, getting drunk, that kind of thing. With BPM around 115, you've got a boogie, you've got a disco feeling, more late 70s, early 80s, that kind of sounds.
Right. And let's face it, dance music is on a big high right now, but as much as we said, let's burn our disco records, disco's like white sugar. Everybody loves it, whether we want to admit it or not. Even Kiss made a disco song, so come on. So it's an infectiously warm record. You recorded Super Critical on the Spanish sun-drenched club mecca of Ibiza. What's the influence of that island on the record and on you as people? I mean, living there now, right?
Yeah, we lived there for well over a year, yeah. we seem to, I think we've probably moved from there now. We went there to make the album like we did in Berlin for the second album. But the weird thing is, it sounds nothing like an Ibiza album. It's so typical of our band. We went to Berlin and made an album that didn't sound anything remotely Berlin-based. But in a way, we did get influenced because we'd go to the clubs and see what wasn't being played, and then go back and we'd sit in the studio with Andy and we'd say, oh my God, you know, Diana Ross at Steelfish 4, and he was like, yeah, I was there that night with her, and he had all these amazing stories. So I think what we love about Ibiza is that it's interesting, it's full of really odd characters and people that don't want the party to end, and tragic kind of stories of people, you know, weeks later, and that definitely helps the writing. But sonically, this is not an Ibiza record. I don't know why we went.
So, Jules, how did you know about Ibiza to begin with? Like, what was it that thought, whoa, let's go there?
Well, Ibiza's famous in Europe. I guess it's pretty famous here as well. But as an island for dance culture, it's been around for, you know, many years. People going there and clubbing all night long, and it's got a great party atmosphere. And we wanted to make a rhythmic party record, so we couldn't think of anywhere to go to be inspired to lose ourselves in kind of funk rhythm and boogie and stuff like that. We were contemplating coming over this side of the water to do it, but I think it would have made the record too much of a pastiche if we'd been too involved with the greats like Nile Rodgers. In fact, we were talking to Nile we were meant to do a show with Nile at Montreal Jazz Festival, and he invited us on stage to play "Shut Up and Let Me Go" while he was playing Chic, and we were like, "Yeah, absolutely, we're doing it." But we were we were on the same hour. You know, we were playing on a different stage at the same time, and we were absolutely devastated. And then flew off literally that evening somewhere else. But we stayed in touch with him when we wrote Wrong Club. We were chatting with him about it, and he was like, "Send me the record, send me the record." And we were really thinking about it, but we'd just met Andy, and there was this great kind of fusion about Niall's amazing, but I think working with Niall would have been too direct. I think we've kind of twisted it a little bit. We've kind of done a DIY thing on it, you know, from the other side of the water. It's not kind of so honest. And with Andy, I think he was hugely inspired by Niall when he was younger. Niall obviously produced some of the Duran records, and he was actually in a band with Bernard, and so we were getting like a guy that had worked with these guys, the greats, that was that they were his heroes, and yet it wasn't them. So he was still doing it his way. Right. We were like imitating all the time, and we love doing that, because the fusion, when you take a sound or a great sound from the past and you try to do it, unless you're amazing, else, yeah. You know, you kind of do it your way, and it kind of fuses into a new thing. And I think that's what we've done with this record.
And having Andy there, what did that bring to you as a band? Not just to the album, but to that entire creative process. Well,
we'd had a really kind of rough year on our second album. We found that a really difficult album to write, and we...
Sorry, difficult? How so? What was...
I don't know, you know, I think our lives changed so much. We was just a band in Manchester making records in our bedroom, and then we went on tour for nearly 4 years. And then we decided to move to Berlin, and then got to Berlin and kind of was like, I feel really weird. I think it was lack of adrenaline, because like we get nervous before we go on stage, and every night we were used to having that adrenaline in our body, and then when we stopped, we just crawled the walls for like 6 months. We couldn't feel normal. We couldn't remember how to make dinner. So it took us a while, and then, you know, where we wrote the record ourselves, suddenly we had 20 people in a board meeting discussing what it should sound like before we'd even written it, and we was like, you know, a lot of pressure. And being in Ibiza with Andy, he's got quite he's a little bit of an anarchist, isn't he? He's really, you know, anti-establishment, passionate. He's just a bit defiant. And so as we was going through what we was going through with our label and the people around us, he kind of gave us a bit of confidence to do it. We'd say we want to, you know, release it on our own record in Europe, on our own label in Europe and things like that. And he would be really, you know, guys, do it, you know. Imagine if a pop band could do that. Normally it's indie or rock bands that kind of do it on their own label. Imagine if a pop band did it and it succeeded. What a great story. And so he definitely, he was a bit like our mentor, really. Yeah.
Valuable.
Yeah.
So, Jules, obviously, as we're talking about, not just the sound of the record has changed, but the fact that you did go indie, which that's a pretty ballsy move. What inspired that, and how has that been?
I think, well, we made our first record, We Started Nothing. We put That's Not My Name and Great DJ, a double A side on vinyl out a year before we signed to our label back then. And I think we've always been very alternative in our approach. Our music's very pop. We love pop music. But I think our mentality, the way we kind of go about making our records and touring, is very kind of independent. So we hardly went to our label back then. We always produced our own music, wrote our own music. We have our own studio. We travel around with our studio. We set it up and we experiment. And I just think that inevitably after, you know, that journey we did with our label, which was fantastic, and we owe them so much, and they're still such great friends of ours, we just got to that point where, as artists, to be free, to be able to experiment and to do new music and to continue this journey, we needed to get back to that point. When, you know, we're not an industry pair. We're a pair of artists that like to mix things up and try things all the time. And we could never do that in the kind of standard industry that evolves at the moment, that works. So we had to kind of get out of that loop. And they were amazing. They were like, they knew that we could make another record under those kind of pretenses. So starting our own label with our manager that managed our first record, he was back on board. Ironically, a lot of the people that were working with the labels back on their first record have all got fired. As you know, they kind of go around in circles quite a lot. And we're all becoming independent. So we actually are working with a lot of those people that we were working with on our first record just by fate, because they're out there doing stuff independently. We're like, hey, why don't you just hook up? And they love the record, and they're like, let's get it going, you know. So it's just a kind of, I don't know, it's just the way this has to evolve for us. It's not right or wrong. It's just,
was it scary though?
No, it was the one thing that actually made us excited to make a new record, was to do it that way. Yeah.
And do you have a lot of pressure, you know, that success in 2008, when you come out of the gate like that, you explode out. Do you feel a lot of pressure about trying to hit that level again, or how do you experience that?
On the second album, yeah. Not really from ourselves, but just from people. You know, we took 4 years to write that second album. Pop bands, people that are on top 40 just do not behave like that. You know, it's every 6 months to a year tops. Like, you churn it out, you know, stay at the top until your time runs out. And we're songwriters, and we wanted, you know, to write songs for 20 years. So it's just a whole different approach. We're terrible at going down red carpets. A couple of times they tried to shove us down a red carpet, and, you know, it's just, we're terrible. We don't do it well. And so it was the most exciting thing to go, oh, can you imagine if we do it ourselves? And can you imagine if we still write great pop songs, but we do it from an indie approach? And that's what we're trying to do.
I think it's so inspirational, not just other musicians, but all artists. When I hear that kind of an argument, it kind of blows my mind, because to me, if you don't have to go to a day job like most people have to do in order to keep yourself fed and a roof over your head, that's success as an artist. And if you do that your whole life in obscurity, you're still successful. If you're lucky enough to one time hit something so high, I think you should be thankful for that and not be saying, when's the next time? And I mean, let's face it, you can go pretty much anywhere in the world. People know who the Ting Tings are.
Yeah.
Not a lot of artists will experience that.
No, we've been incredibly lucky. And for us, if we can write for the next 20 years and every now and then one of the songs crosses over into pop. And I remember we'd be in the States and we'd be doing the pop radio because we was getting played on pop radio, and we'd drive in to the radio stations, and, you know, they'd be playing, I don't know, like Lady Gaga and Pitbull, and then there'd be our little record that we made ourselves and that our friend mastered for like $50. Like, nice. It cost nothing. And we'd hear it and we'd be like, how is this getting played, like, next to all these huge production songs written by like 20 people? And it always fascinated us how we got onto radio. And I think now we know ourselves as a band, now we're on our third album, if we can just write and be creative and every now and then one of your songs crosses over, that is the best career in the world, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And when it's real, I think people respond to it, no matter if it's a $50 production or a $50 million production, right? People can feel that. We like to think we can fake it, but people always know. Yeah. People always know. You're now touring North America. What are you hoping people are going to take away from the new record over here?
We've just done our first month tour in Europe. Our first show was in Brussels, I remember, and we got on stage and smashed it up. We change stuff when we play live. The record, we've got a DJ on stage that we found in Ibiza. His name's Boix, and he's a great DJ, and we brought him on stage. So we're doing some live scratching. We're doing, you know, loops, and it's a different approach for us. It's full on energy. That the crowds are going crazy. I think what we want people to do is just come and have an amazing time, because we're certainly having an amazing time on stage. And everything we do is about getting out of the day-to-days, because it's tough. You know, everyone's having a tough time. The world's a changing place, and the one thing that we get liberated from all that is the music, getting on stage, smashing the drums up, experimenting on the guitars and letting people sweat up with us. So it's, you know, we play 500 to 1,000. We're doing all these small, great clubs. Well, not that small, but great clubs all up and down here. And it's about people just getting off and having a great time. And if you don't want to do that, then don't come to the show because we're doing it on stage, you know.
Well, you're being liberated just obviously liberates the rest of us. And for me, you know, it is hard-earned money. And if I'm going to drop my money and come out to a show,
You want to dance?
I don't want to hear what I could hear just
Yeah.
by playing the record at home. I want to see you sweat, and I want to get a little dirty as the night goes on too. So it's very exciting. I've heard reports that you're planning to record your next album in Nashville. Now I'm trying to think Berlin, then
Yeah.
Newpies, and then all of a sudden Nashville. Yeah, that's a natural third step. But why Nashville?
I think we're quite fascinated by country music. It's not my favourite thing at all, but it's something we've not tried. I mean, we've got obsessed with, like, you know, Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks as well on this album. And I think the plan is to somehow stalk Lindsey Buckingham and demand that he helps co-produce our next album and go somewhere like Nashville. But, you know, we change our minds constantly, so we'll probably end up, I don't know, sat in some random city somewhere.
But it'd be cool to go to Nashville and
Yeah.
be just surrounded by country music and Lizzie Buckingham and then come out with something like a fusion like we've done here with like this kind of
That
disco
sounds
record.
nothing like
Yeah.
it.
I almost need a moment to think about the Ting Tings
Yeah, it
in
would be
Nashville with Lindsey Buckingham.
And
And
you have
in
to
a
stalk
way,
him first, though.
you're outlaws, you're rebels, you're going against the grain.
Yeah.
And original old school country music, they were the original gangsters. They were the original outlaws.
Yeah.
So in a way, you can see how that fit would definitely.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to us, I
A
think.
challenge, you know.
Well, I think part of the reason that people respond so well to you as well is you're just such a lovely and warm couple of human beings.
Oh, thank
And, you know, incredible how down to earth you've remained through all this incredible
Thank you.
success. So I wish you much more of it.